Jeff Brohm is on fire.
You are Locked On Louisville, your daily podcast on the Louisville Cardinals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, everyone? Welcome into this Tuesday edition of the Locked On Louisville podcast. I'm your host, Dalton Pence. Joining me today, as always, well, not really as always, it's been a while, but look, as always, for the premier football talk, Grant Mulligan, former Louisville recruiting assistant, G-Money in the house. G-Money, what's going on, man? Long time no see.
Well, we've had another sport that has been very exciting recently, and I don't blame anybody at all for wanting to talk about that right now. 25 wins. Got to rep the boy. But that's not what we're here to talk about today. This is a football episode. Why else would I be here? Thank you for having me back, Dalton, and it's great to be back with the fans.
Of course. Today's episode of the show is brought to you by the all-new 2025 Nissan Armada. Stay with us for the Armada Team of the Week later on in the episode. A lot of football talk on the show today. Is Jeff Brohm putting more emphasis on high school recruiting? Well, it would seem like that is the case. We'll discuss here shortly. We'll talk about the new football commitments, 3 of them over the weekend. Local star Karsten Busch and 2 Florida standouts, Jaydin Broadnax and Joel Ervin. Will also have a recruiting buy-sell segment. Haven't had a buy-sell since Grant's last episode. I'm not going to have a buy-sell without G-Money on the show. But Grant, looking at this, one of the main talking points for this program on the recruiting side is the debate between the portal and the high school ranks. And it seems like over the past couple of off seasons, the portal has been prioritized the most. And for good reason, it has led Louisville to back-to-back seasons of at least 9 wins. However, I think that we realized this offseason that, well, you're a victim of the market, and the market got super inflated with the transfer portal, and who knows how, inflated it's going to get. So it seems like we're kind of reverting back to the normal mean, and Louisville's starting to put more emphasis on that high school recruiting.
Well, and it's a thing that we talked about leading up to the 2025 class is that we thought that given some time under the new coaching staff, under the new administration, they would have more time to establish more grassroots ties, more relationships within. Of course, Brohm and staff are always going to have relationships to the Louisville area, but establishing yourself as a new coaching staff and a new program often takes time with high school recruiting. And we thought that we would see that come more to fruition in 25. It's early, but the early returns look like what I was told would be the case in 25 is starting to become the case in 26. So it was just a year off, or the information I got was about a year off. But you also got to look at the circumstances surrounding it. There's a lot of talk of expanding the scholarships. Unfortunately, no more walk-ons. But whenever you expand the scholarships to that degree and you don't have scholarship-free play or the roster size and to have scholarships for the full roster, attacking this exactly how Brohm has from a high school recruiting perspective is the exact way I think you want to build in that, say, 115 scholarship realm. And that is by finding local talent. And it kind of upgrades the level of, quote, walk-on that you're getting. Because if you have to use it, or if you have the ability to use a scholarship on a guy anyways, now you can get a guy who would maybe go be a starter or a scholarship guy at like Eastern Kentucky who you see as a walk-on player. It's gonna hurt programs like that at the lower level, but it really helps from a local recruiting perspective. And I think that's what it feels like to me. And with a lot of these other local guys, not the one we'll talk about earlier. He's a real player. We won't get to that yet. But I think circumstance plays a big factor, but also we're further in. The Brohm staff is an established product at Louisville. Their recruiting ties are starting to deepen, and I think that what we thought would come to case in 25 is looking like it's starting to come to fruition in 26.
I would agree with that, and it's something that I don't really expect Louisville to now go the complete opposite. Like, I don't think Louisville's going to take back-to-back like 25 men recruiting classes. Like, I think it's going to be, if you get to 20, or even in that 15 to 20 spot, but you go after better recruits, higher rated recruits. I think that that's something you could see. And the 3 that they got over the weekend, I look at and I'm thinking, okay, this is kind of where Louisville needs to sit in recruiting. And this is no disrespect to who they've brought in, but it seems like they used the most of their NIL funds toward the portal, like I said, for good reason. And local recruiting has been great since Brohm has come back from the portal and from the high school ranks. This was a recruit that I was hoping Louisville would land. 3-star linebacker Karsten Busch from St. X, currently ranked as a top 3 prospect in the state of Kentucky. And watching the film, I mean, he fits the bill. Really talented, 6'3", 223 pounds, around that area. It's going to be interesting to see where he projects. Do you get the same sense as me, Grant? I see him as an off-ball outside linebacker. That's kind of where I see him at.
That's where I see him as well. You know, if you watch the tape, Trent, or he'd take disrespect if I actually finished that thought there. St. X used him primarily as an outside linebacker. I almost
He was
slipped
about to call him the Shamrock.
I know he was. I about slipped up there. I apologize. But they used him primarily as an on-ball outside rush linebacker, but they moved him off-ball as well. He actually shined in a lot of those clips in coverage. He had great anticipation on the route. I think stuff like that, and given he's got a really great body and frame for off-ball linebacker. And in fact, he has enough size and profile to come on the ball. But I agree with you. Watching what he does well on tape and seeing what we like to do on defense, I think he fits that mold in an excellent fashion. He was really great with his recognition. In the few plays he was dropped into coverage, he was making splash plays, one of which was an incredible read on the quarterback for an interception. But he also has a lot of tools in his toolkit for pass rush ability. He has a lot of power, especially for his size. He is a big, 6'3", 223 for a high school linebacker, especially for the area. He's got great physical tools. But you feel him even when he's coming off the edge. He plays with a lot of physicality. He's not getting blown off the ball. This is a real deal Division I Power 5 player. This is the kind of guy that you can't let leave the city. This isn't just a guy we would go after if he was, or just because he's in the state. This is a guy that if you get him from, say, Indiana or Tennessee, Ohio, North Carolina, you're still happy about this guy because he's the level of player that belongs at this level, and I'm really happy we were able to keep him home.
At first I thought Wisconsin was going to be the team to sort of fend off in this recruitment. You look at the offers here: Kentucky, Indiana, Wisconsin, Cincinnati, Georgia Tech, North Carolina, Minnesota, Purdue, Wake Forest. So mainly that ACC, Big 10, Big 12 flavor, not much SEC interest at the moment, which I don't think it is like the telltale sign of how good he is or is not going to be. But he screams like, I don't want to compare these guys one for one. I see a lot of Antonio Watts in terms of how he projects to be maybe like a weak side linebacker. But also, I'm also kind of torn because he's got those instincts as a pass rusher. That first step, it's filthy. That first step, just complete sideline to sideline guy. That pursuit is incredible. The athleticism, the speed, the ability to cut upfield. Just a lot to like with this recruitment. And I agree with you. This is the type of in-state prospect you can go after because in-state recruiting is so intriguing to me because the state of Kentucky isn't known for consistently putting out top talent. Now, they might have some top-rated guys, but the old saying, I'd rather have a high 3-star from Florida, Texas, Georgia, or California than have a 4-star from Kentucky. And there likely is some justification for that take, but there are always a couple prospects, maybe every year, that say, you know what, we're different from the norm. And it feels like Karsten Busch is one of those guys. So Just
I agree. I like his game a lot. I like what he brings physically. And one of the things I want to just last note before we move on,
Yeah.
what I think allows him to play so fast and the thing that impressed me the most about his game is he is really trusting of his instincts.
Yeah.
You see a lot of high school linebackers who have tons of physical tools oozing with athleticism, pop, hit power, but they're a tick slow because they're not comfortable yet with their diagnosis and reads. Busch, it does not have that problem. His first step is nasty, but also he is full go. He sees the field well. He finds the ball well, and once he keys in, he's gone. He doesn't have a second delay or the trigger on his instincts. I think he has something that is very difficult to teach, and that's what makes me really excited about his transition to the next level. I think he has. I think he has the intangible that allows linebackers to play even faster than their athleticism would allow them to play.
No, I would definitely agree there. Louisville is so historically in tune with local recruiting, but one thing they've also been really good at is recruiting the state of Florida. And over the weekend after the Busch commitment, they got 2 commits from some really exciting prospects from the Sunshine State. We'll tell you who they are and discuss their games when we come back on this Tuesday edition of the Locked On Louisville podcast. The Armada Team of the Week is brought to you by our friends at Nissan and the all-new 2025 Nissan Armada. Each week, our Locked On College basketball experts are picking one team that stands apart. This week's Armada and Clear-Cut Team of the Week are the Duke Blue Devils. John Shire's team, led by the National Player of the Year candidate Cooper Flagg, just ripped through the ACC going 19-1. The Blue Devils were plus 434 in points and ACC contests, the largest point differentials by a power conference team in league play since Kentucky in 1953 and 54. When it comes to the Nissan Armada, they say go forth and conquer, and that's exactly what the Duke Blue Devils have done here. It's clear that our team of the week is out here ready to conquer the road ahead with confidence, just like you can in the all-new Nissan Armada or any of the Nissan's outstanding vehicles. Take the Nissan Armada, Rogue, or Pathfinder and go find your next big adventure. Shop NissanUSA.com. Cardinal fans, thanks again for making us your first listen of the day. On the show tomorrow, back to basketball talk. We'll discuss the opportunity at hand in the conference tournament and also dive into a weekly mailbag. So be sure to drop your weekly mailbag questions in the comments below. Grant Mulligan, former Louisville recruiting assistant, joining us on the show today to talk a little football recruiting. Grant, 2 commitments from the state of Florida. Currently, if you go to 24/7 Sports, both of those guys are in the top 3 in Louisville's commitments. One of them is number 1. That is 4-star defensive back Jaydin Broadnax from Boca Raton. Played for West Boca Raton High School. That went 15-0. Won a Florida 6A championship. He had 38 tackles, 12 passes broken up, and an interception. This guy's not only physical traits, but the tape on the film. This guy screams future CB1.
I really like his game, especially in coverage. This was a really fun watch for me. He is every bit of the 6'2", 190. He looks like a college corner out there. He has that long arm length that you're looking for. But the first thing that popped out to me on tape was how good his eyes are with the quarterback. You look at him, you think press man corner, which he does very well. But the tape that impressed me the most when watching it was when he was a drop back, cover 3 cloud, and zone coverage, where he could sit back and watch the quarterback because his breaks were almost instantaneous whenever he was able to click and key on the quarterback. I think he makes really, really great reads. His timing was fantastic. He uses that length to his full advantage to get in there. That 12 pass breakups were no joke. I mean, he is very, very disruptive, and at the catch point, he is very sticky in coverage because he is a very impressive coverage player. I think that despite that size, I think there's some to work on and run support before we moved to CB1, but the coverage skills, the natural feel, and the physical tools are impressive, to say the least.
Charts. I want to read you something that Locked On national recruiting analyst Brian Smith told me, and he has a lot of background in Florida. That's where he was at for a couple of years before going to Alabama, and he has a really good pulse on Florida recruiting. And when Broadnax committed to Louisville, this is what Brian Smith said about Broadnax: elite upside, tremendous length. He needs to fill out his frame, which is kind of what you were saying, but has incredible athleticism as well. And the last thing he said, NFL player. Like I said, 6'3" with those instincts, with the athleticism. He does need to, like we have said, fill out the frame. And I think that he's going to be able to do that. I'm hoping that he's going to be an early enrollee. That's something that we'll see, because it could help to get him in the weight room to be able to add some strength there. But overall, I really like this commitment. And I also like the next commitment, offensive tackle prospect from Fort Myers, 3-star, ranked just outside of the top 700. But Grant, when you look at the offer sheet here, Florida, Miami, Auburn, Kentucky, Georgia, Florida State, North Carolina, USC, the list goes on. 6'6", 280 pounds. Feels like Louisville got a good one here.
I think they certainly did. The first thing that pops out when you watch that tape is this dude plays angry.
He's a mauler,
angry. He is a mauler. His whole tape is just putting guys in Florida. This isn't, no disrespect, this isn't Kentucky tape where he's putting 180-pound defensive ends into the dirt. This is Florida tape. He is putting guys into the ground on a snap-to-snap basis. He has that nasty demeanor. He has that SEC-level demeanor. He has the strength. He is a lot to like, especially in the run game. You don't get to see, and this is a high school thing, you don't get to see a lot in pass protection on his tape because there's not a lot of true pass sets in the high school level. But I think that there's a lot to work with there, especially considering his length. I think that maybe there's some future guard flexibility there, depending on how his development goes. I didn't love him on the move on tape. I don't know what his foot speed and his outside speed is like, but man, he's got length, he's got height, he's got size. Big guard, mauler, if that's what you want to do with him. If you feel comfortable with him at tackle, and if he proves me wrong on a couple of those things, he definitely has the length and the demeanor to survive at tackle. But man, he's gonna play somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, he played both of the tackle spots. Well, actually, technically, if you want to be technical, all three, because he played defensive tackle as well. So he played both ways. This is what Brian Smith had to say about Joel. Bends well, long arms, and reaches the second level like an athlete more than a traditional offensive lineman. Patient run blocker with a track record of being consistent. That's the beauty of switching guard and tackle, Grant, is that if you can do it, if you have that skill set, Louisville's got time to figure out. This is one of those things that, number one, you want to get these guys on campus as soon as you can, because you don't want them to flip to another school. And if your response to what I said about his offer sheet was, well, he probably wasn't getting all that highly recruited considering he was in the 700s. Well, he had an official visit scheduled to Florida. He had an official visit scheduled to Kentucky. It looked like, now I don't have the confirmation on this, it looked like there was an official visit going to be scheduled for Georgia. So obviously there's something to like, and when you watch the tape, it's not really a surprise as to why many programs are going after him. I think the thing with Broadnax and Ervin, you need to make sure that you keep these guys committed. That goes without saying, because just because you get that commitment doesn't really mean much in the grand scheme until they end up showing up on campus, and at this point putting on a jersey in the fall. So here's to hoping that Louisville can keep both of those commitments. I really like how Jeff Brohm has been recruiting over the past 96 hours. It's been pretty wild to see. So when we come back, it's time for another buy-sell segment. I know you all have been waiting. It's been a couple months. I blame Grant. Actually, I blame Pat Kelsey and the Louisville basketball team, but we're going to let it slide on this one. So some recruiting buy-sells when we come back on this Tuesday edition of the Locked On Louisville podcast. Attention, Locked On Louisville fans. Ever wish you could directly support your favorite Louisville athletes and be a part of their journey? Well, now you can with Roy, the NIL app that puts fans in control. Before Roy, NIL deals were often handled behind closed doors, and fans like you didn't have a clear way to directly support the players you love. But now you do have the opportunity to make a real impact and feel closer to the athletes representing the Cardinals with Roy, because you get to choose the player you want to support, decide how much to contribute. And the best part is that that player transfers. You get your money back, so it's a risk-free way to support your players and make your voice heard. Support your favorite players directly and help shape the future of Louisville sports. Download the Roy app now from the App Store and start backing Cardinal athletes the way they deserve, with transparency, trust, and real impact. This is the future of college sports. Join it now by downloading Roy and supporting your favorite players. Into the final segment of this special Tuesday football recruiting edition of the Locked On Louisville podcast. Dalton Pence joined by Grant Mulligan, former Louisville recruiting assistant. We both have a buy-sell to ask, and if we have enough time, I will introduce a second buy-sell that I thought of, but that's only if we have time. Grant, first one that I have is when you look at the guys that Louisville just got and seemingly the players that they are involved with, the guys they brought on campus, buy or sell, the Cardinals will have at least four composite four-star prospects in this class.
Okay, so we already have one, and is Broadnax a composite four-star?
So when I say composite, I'm referring to the 24/7 sports composite, and Broadnax is.
He is. So we have one.
Yes.
I'm going to give an interesting angle to this. I'm going to buy it, but I'm going to have a thought here. Okay,
I would hope you would have a thought.
I say this every time. I think you get this.
I would hope you would think about this answer, Grant.
Yeah, I do say buy because I think that's very possible. But I think it's not just new commitments. I think
I'm glad you're going. I'm glad you're going this route.
I'm going to say that one of our commitments, at least who's not currently a four-star, will ascend to that status.
Who do you think it's going to be?
I'm going to say Mr. Briggs Cherry.
Yep. And
ascend his way to four-star status before the end of his high school career.
I agree. Can I give you another name?
Go ahead.
Imani Smith.
I could see it.
Then again, Karsten Busch could be a player that plays himself into that. But yeah, if you bank on one more, again, you're assuming that Broadnax stays committed, the other guys stay committed. You have one other player from this class currently committed rise up to that ranking, which is possible, and you get two other four-stars. I think 4 is really realistic.
I think it's realistic too, especially considering the guys that we're in on right now. I mean, there's a few names that where you've made some top 8s, some top 4s, and I feel pretty good about our chances, as good as anybody. So, and we played the long game with CJ May, ended up landing him. So Brohm's clearly experienced in the long game 4-star commitment. I think we've got a good chance. I feel good about the 4 number.
Okay. What's the highest you would go? Like, what would have been the number you're like, ooh, would it be 5? Is that?
I think I would hard no 6.
Okay.
5 I would think about.
That's fair.
I don't know where I would land on 5. I don't think so.
Yeah.
Right now, I'm not feeling it for 6.
Okay. What's your buy sell?
My buy sell is on the same topic of the 247. If you look now, Louisville is 13th in national recruiting rankings, largely due to quantity of commitments. But with the momentum we currently have, I buy or sell. Louisville finishes the 26 class inside the top 35.
I'm glad you said 35 because I was really going to be sweating the top 25. I just don't know that Louisville gets the numbers to have a top 25 class. Top 35, here's the thing that I look at. These 3 commitments are really solid. But up to this point, it seems like the Cardinals have pretty much just gone after diamond in the rough type prospects. I'm going to buy this. I think that there's a couple players that Louisville's had on campus that they are currently recruiting that I just feel as if they get those commitments, who knows? There's going to be some pretty interesting rankings talk. And there's I'm trying to think of Ashari Charles is a 4-star guy that has a warm classification on 24/7 Sports. You know, you had the warm and cool. Or is it like the hot, warm, and cool? Is that how it goes on 24/7 Sports?
That's pretty rare. Like, and then
Yeah.
there's actually there's one above that, which is favorite.
Yeah, I've never seen that.
I have. I've seen it. It's only a few times.
That's pretty
But
interesting.
yeah,
But
there's the favorite tag.
nonetheless, I think top 35 is obtainable. But to get to that point, you have to, number one, have some of your current recruits rise up in the rankings, but you also need to continue this hot streak. So I can see it either way because I don't think they're going to take a good amount of players. I think it's probably still under 20, maybe like 18, maybe 18 and 19. How many do they have right now? They have, what is it? 9? Yeah, they have 9 commits. So we'll see. I'm going to buy it though.
You have to think about it. That's a good one, man.
Yeah, no, that's a really good one. I think you won this buy sell. Were you sort of in the same headspace though? I know you're trying to think at the moment. You might have a thought on this one as well. But are you in that same mindset, or you think Louisville's going to get top 35?
I really think that we can, because we're really starting to hit a good stride in the recruiting space, and we haven't even hit the hottest recruiting months yet. You know, we haven't gotten into the May, June recruiting period yet. And I think that is where a lot of these big hunts start to really make way. And I like what our staff has done already in the spring. I think we've not just gotten some solid commitments, but laid some very solid groundwork. So I think into the dog days of summer, I really like where we're standing into the even hotter recruiting period. That's how it's got me feeling right now.
Yeah. I mean, right now, as of early morning recruiting talk, or early morning recording, I should say, Louisville's currently 13th in the composite rankings on 24/7. They are at 9 commitments. Not many other teams have that many, so I don't expect Louisville to stay inside the top 15 whatsoever. But the longer they do hang around the top 20, the more confident I feel about a top 35 finish. It really, to me, just depends on how many commitments you're going to take from this class. And that's going to be the largest indicator for me at this point. So, Grant, always great to have you back on, man. I know that we've talked a lot about basketball recently, and it's wild because since I started this show, the Cardinals have never had a winning record, like 2022, 23, 24. Louisville's been really bad. So this is the first year where we've actually talked about being in the postseason and what it means for the tournament. So once the postseason ends, of course, there will be basketball portal talk, but there will also be spring football talk. We're going to discuss more and more football, have Grant Mulligan on more, have Keith Artov from the Pink Seats on more, and just have a good spring, even when there aren't really many sports being played. But that's going to wrap up this Tuesday edition of the show. Everyone have a great day. We'll see you right back here tomorrow. Go Cards. No chance.